So every now and again I manage to get a day off, and there's nothing I like more than to have a bit of an adventure when I go fishing. These big wild waters are definitely a piece of me. The bigger and the wilder, the better. Um, Lots of friends of mine often say, "Oh, I'd love to have a crack at that," but I don't really know where to start. Well, it's quite simple. Anyone could do it. The first thing you would do is pick a venue you want to go to. We're here at Llandegfedd today. What is it, 5,500 acres? It's a slightly big sheet of water. As a lot will already know, it holds some colossal fish. It's held a British record pike for God knows how many years. And the bream and hybrid catches are absolutely phenomenal. I don't get here very often, a couple of times a year in fairness, but there's a lot of information available about venues like this, and particularly this place. So access is becoming a lot easier. If you wanted to come down, first thing I would do is get on Facebook, get on the internet, and find out a little bit of information. There's loads of the regular lads who fish this a lot more than I do. I'm an absolute novice to it, which is probably why I enjoy coming so much. But get in touch with them. Find out who's fishing down here, ping them a message. They're all brilliant guys. They all want to see everybody catch fish. So it's important to find out on a venue this size where boys are fishing and where they're catching. Obviously, the weather's vitally important as well. You want to look at where the wind's blowing, where it has been blowing, where it's going to be blowing. And on a venue like this, you're looking for a little bit of colour, ideally. Again, get on Facebook, get on the internet, have a little chat with a few people. There's loads of boys that are going to offer the right information. And then it's all about coming down and just having a blast of a day. The mind boggles at what swims around in here. So as already been documented, there's some colossal catches of bream. Hopefully we're going to catch a few today, and it's big, raw, wild fishing, something that I love. We've got the big rods out, so anybody with a medium to heavy feeder rod, 12 or 13 foot, is perfect for this game. We've boated across today because the level's so high. The level does fluctuate throughout the year, but we've boated across from the dam end there, so we've come all the way down, and we settled on an area that, fingers crossed, there's going to be some fish. The information I've had in the week says there could be some fish about. The wind is not quite as I'd like, but we do have a ripple, which is always a bonus. I brought loads of bait. It doesn't really matter which. Same with ground bait. It doesn't really matter on a water like this. If you're catching fish, it's because they're in your peg and eating. If they don't want to eat, they won't be anywhere near your gear. It's quite simple. You can use strong lines, big hooks, great big feeders, loads of bait, and just attack it as much as you want. Absolutely loads of fun. I've spent 20 minutes putting some gear in, probably a bit longer than that actually, because I didn't get a chance to come and pre-bait, which is one thing I will say. If you can pre-bait, come and do it. A lot like Ireland, they'll get on it overnight, and then when you turn up the next day, you can have a phenomenal day. So a lot of the lads do. I didn't get a chance to, but I've spent 20 minutes, half an hour, putting a load of gear in. I'm going to jump on a box and hopefully get a couple of pulls. So when you come to a new water, somewhere you don't know, you've never been before, and have got no idea of the depths or what's in front of you, how do you go about finding out? It's really, really important you know what's on the bottom and how deep it is. Otherwise, you could be casted into water that's far too deep, or conversely, of course, far too shallow. Now, it's really important to find an area that you want to fish on, and an area that you think is right for fishing on. Now, to do that, I've come here today. This is an area I've never fished before. I've got no idea of the depths. So how do we go about finding it? Well, very much like pole fishing, it's all about plumbing the depths and distances, of course. Now, we do that quite simply with a feeder rod and a bomb attached to the end of the line. Now, this particular bomb, as you can see, has got little nodules on it, and all that does is exaggerate what's on the bottom when we drag it across, so you'll feel it down through the braid and down through the rod, but we'll discuss that in a second. Now, quite simply, a bomb on the end of the line, and all we're going to do, we're going to cast this around the peg, and we're going to count how long the bomb takes to get to the bottom. Now, when doing this, get in the habit of A, using the same size bomb, and B, counting in exactly the same way. That way, you'll get the same depths, the same distances, and the same feel for every peg you sit on and every cast you make. So I use a 2-ounce bomb. Lots of people use 1.5 ounces. It doesn't really matter. And likewise, counting. Some people use stopwatches. Some people count themselves. It doesn't matter as long as you're consistent the way you do it. That way, when you cast out, you can count the bomb to the bottom. And you might have a count of 8, for instance, and then you might cast somewhere else and have a count of 6. So straight away, you know there's a difference in depth. So let's have a quick look. As I said, I've never been here before, so where would you start? Well, first and foremost, I'd probably cast to my extreme range and work my way back on a certain line. So I'll cast my bomb out, count it to the bottom, and then I'll wind in maybe 10 turns, cast a bit shorter, count it to the bottom, wind in again, all the way back. Now, if you do that in a fan throughout your peg, you're going to have an idea of the gradient at the bottom. So if we go out to, let's say 80 meters, and I've got a count of 10, wind in 10 turns to 65, 70 meters, and I've got a count of 8, I know straight away that there's a gradient there. Okay, and if you do that in a fan across your peg, you're going to get an idea of what you're fishing on. So let's have a quick chuck. It's a big water today, so we're quite a way out. 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 that hit the bottom on. Now, the easiest way to find out what you're fishing on, which is the other really important thing, is with these bombs, let it hit the bottom, tighten up to it, and just gently drag it back across the bottom. And what you tend to find is what's on the bottom will transmit through the braid. I mean, we're using braid. It's super important that you use braid because there's zero stretch in it, and every little rock or little bit of weed you touch, that'll get transmitted through the rod, and you'll understand a bit more about what's on the bottom. Now, this is coming back relatively smoothly, so I would think this is a sort of silty or clay bottom. That's just held up a little bit there. So that could be a small patch of weed. Now, if I'm fishing on rocks or gravel, you'll feel the rod tapping. The bigger the rocks, the bigger the jabs. And if you're on sort of shale or gravel, it'll just rattle as the bomb comes across. And it's really important, depending on what you're fishing for, to find out what's on the bottom. Exactly as you would with a pole. Plumbing your swim in the pole. There's some weed there. So let's take that back to the clip. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Right, put it back under the clip. So that was quite a long way out. I don't intend fishing that far if I don't have to, but again, this is all about trying to find out what's in front of me, so I can make a decision as to where to fish. So we've come in 15 or so meters there, and we're going to do it again. Exactly the same line as where we cast before. 1, 2, 3. So that's a count of 7. So that we've come in 15 or 20 yards, and I've got one count less. So straight away we know there's a slight variation in depth. Now that bomb is skating across the bottom super smooth, so that would lead me to think the bottom is clay or silt, which is quite nice, I'm quite happy to fish over that. But we'll do the same again now, a little bit shorter. Leave your clips on, and I'll show you why in a second. So let's wind him in. There we are. So we've come in another sort of 20 meters, we're now in a count of 4. So we know straight away that the bottom we're on is doing that. So that's really, really important when you're gauging where to fish in your peg. Now what I would do is repeat that process in 2 or 3 segments in a fan in my swim, and that'll give you a good idea of the gradient and the depth that you're fishing in. Then you can make a decision on exactly whereabouts in your peg you want to fish. So all we've done, we've sat on the peg. It might take you 10 or 15 minutes, it might take you a bit longer, but don't scrimp on this section. I'd rather start the match late and know what I'm fishing over and in what depth, rather than be chucking into the oblivion and not have a clue what's going on the bottom. It's really, really important for me to know exactly what I'm fishing on. So what we're going to do, we're going to quickly do the same in a fan now across the swim. We're going to find a spot to fish on, and then we'll know exactly what's on the bottom. Nice and simple, but a step not to be missed. Well, the conditions have beaten us. Unfortunately, we've struggled badly, apart from a few pesky trout. We've not had any fish at all today. It's been a real struggle. The weatherman has done us dirty. It couldn't be any worse for where we're sat, which is not what was forecast. But hey ho, you've got to expect those days like that on venues like this. We'll certainly come back and hopefully catch them next time. Well, welcome to Llandegfedd Reservoir, part 2. Last time we were here, a little bit earlier in the year, we got royally stitched up by the weatherman. Gin clear water, blue skies, no good. This time it's a bit later in the year. It's now end of summer. The water level's as low as anybody's ever seen it. I reckon it's 30 feet down. And we're in a different part of the reservoir with very different weather. Hopefully today we can catch a few fish and we can show you just how good this place is. But fingers crossed, they've caught some in this area recently. I know I said that last time, but this tends to be getting fished a bit more now, so hopefully the fish are going to be around. We've got a bit of cloud cover, some stormy-ish sort of weather, low pressure and a ripple. If we don't catch anything today, you won't be seeing me again. Anyway, let's go on the box. I've already put some gear out, so let's chuck a rod in, see if we can get one. Well, we finally got a proper fish on. We caught some beautiful roach, really nice fish, probably nudging a pound, some of them. It's been a little bit more difficult than I hoped it was going to be. But finally, just as I was losing faith and thinking I was going to have to fish a bit further out, it's gone round and we've got what feels like a bream on. I'm only fishing 45 metres today. I found it's relatively flat out there. But I had a good plumb around from 80 metres all the way back in, really, and there's not a lot of difference in depth. So because this wind is so savage, I've opted to fish 45 metres, and even that is proving a little bit hard on times, such as some of the gusts. But we've got one, so hopefully there'll be more to come. They don't half pull the rod in as well. This is why I love it here. Everything is just aggressive. There he is. Come on. In she goes. Look at that. So what sort of baits do you bring on great big waters like this? Well, to be honest, from my point of view, anything. Today I've got a big bucket of ground bait with me, and a lot of, you know, the usual baits you would expect: casters, worms, some ropey old dead maggots, and a few pellets to fill it out. It really is about, with these places, you know, a lot of the time. I mean, you can see from the banks behind me, that's no different out there. So your feed is the feature. You're not looking for features per se. You know, you're trying to make your feed the feature to bring the fish in. So the one rule of thumb I have with places like this is, you know, don't be afraid. Don't be cautious with what you're doing. Be really positive, because it certainly doesn't pay to go undergunned. Ground bait mix, I mean, use what you're confident in. Mine today is my usual Special G Gold, some Pro Natural Fine Lake, and I've also had half a bag of Pro Natural Dark kicking about, so that's gone in as well. It really is about, you know, sticking to what you're confident in, and just keep working the peg until these fish, you know, turn up. Again, I can't stress enough about, you know, local knowledge, and speaking to the guys who fish these waters regularly, because they're the ones who know the moods of the fish and where they're likely to be. I mean, as I said earlier, you know, where we're sat today, I was quietly hopeful that some fish tend to live in this sort of area from what we know. The weather is savage. It's absolutely savage. Some of the gusts of wind. And in fairness, if I didn't know the place, I'd certainly be down with the wind in my face today. That's definitely the area to be. But because there's been some fish showing in this area, I've stuck with it, and we've had a few bites. It's been good. So let's hopefully we'll get a few more. Here he is, look. We've gone from one extreme to the other, from bright blue skies, relatively flat calm, to absolute blowing a hoolie and getting soaked. It's actually calmed down now, but a real wild day on a massive reservoir. Got plenty of fish, plenty of perch, a beautiful roach, and a few big bream. You don't need loads of fish on a place like this. It's absolutely stunning. Well, how's this for typically Welsh weather? I'm absolutely soaked to the bone, hence me rushing back to the van. We've had an awesome day, loads of fun. The wind has been horrific, but this is exactly how you want it on Llandegfedd. We've caught some fish. We haven't caught what we thought we'd catch, but we had a lovely day. We've caught some bream, a few big roach and some lovely big perch, all on a feeder at about sort of 45 to 50 metres. Nothing complicated. Bearing in mind we haven't pre-baited, we've just rocked up today and had a go. So with that, if you guys want to have a go at one of these awesome waters, get yourself booked on, because in here lies serious red letter days.